Thanks very much.
Thank you.
So I've never had a translator before, so I just thought I would abuse that right and say octopus, screen door effect, cotton candy. Okay, all right, sorry, it's abusive apparently. I just thought I would flex that muscle. Okay, so I mean, for those who saw me in the morning painting in tilt brush in virtual reality, you'll get a feel for what I do. I have come from not a traditional background for game development or design. I've come from a filmmaking background. And I'll get a little bit into that. But for me, what I really want to do is sort of spruik, promote, encourage you to think about creative uses of this technology as a way of being able to make the world sort of a more human designed place. So that's what I'm going to focus on, is the handcrafted side of the virtual worlds, and trying to mix those two together. A lot of people like to think digital and traditional worlds don't mix, and I think that's just been because the technology hasn't been there at that stage, and we'll jump into it. So when we're thinking about what lay people or what the general public think about with VR, this is what generally comes to mind. They think sci-fi, they think a Keanu Reeves movie, or they think it's all about video games. Now, don't get me wrong, love the video games, love that part of it, but for me, video games is only one portion of what makes virtual reality important and what makes a tool for people to be able to use on more than just a casual gaming perspective. So there's the Keanu Reeves reference in there. Everyone seems to think that we're going to all be heading towards a Johnny Mnemonic or a Matrix future. They also seem to think that sometimes that this technology happens to be the big bad monster in the closet, the dystopian future waiting for us, with Soylent Green being fed to us while we have headsets on. Now, I'm sure there are lots of politicians that would like that to be the case, but I don't think that is necessarily the case. As we've seen, technology gets smaller, it gets more portable, it gets more accessible and cheaper, and the hope is that with virtual reality it becomes a lot more natural to use and a lot easier and a lot less intrusive in our lives. But for me, the big key difference here with virtual reality is that virtual reality is more like dreaming with your eyes open than anything else. And I say that because when I first got into virtual reality, I was, to be honest, a bit skeptic. I'd only ever seen bad virtual reality, and I've only ever saw it in the context of things that weren't super relevant to me. A chance encounter at an arcade in Australia, I used Tilt Brush for the first time and instantly saw the potential as a tool to be able to create something from scratch. Up until then, I'd been working very heavily with crews, with cast and producers, people. When you're producing films or you're producing ads, it's a team of people that's really needed to be able to make anything of significant value. And virtual reality is one of those things that I saw the instant ability to be able to create something in front of me and then show someone that idea and then have them get the same idea. So for me, there's a real freedom in this medium, more so than in sitting behind a keyboard and a mouse. So for what I'm currently using the technology for is as a painting medium, a sculpting medium, a design medium, a communication medium. These are all things that you can do with pen and paper, but we're using all of the dimensions that you have in front of you. You really be able to create something from scratch and get that idea out of your head very quickly and in front of people. And I work a lot doing this sort of thing, doing painting where I'm creating an installation, and that's the thing that seems to come up a lot because it's quite impressive a lot of the time. But I also do a lot of work with large organisations in the visual effects world, and then also down to smaller independent groups and education organisations in the UK, as well as in Europe. And a lot of it comes down to about the speed, the effectiveness of the communication of your ideas. Now, if you're drawing a 2D picture of a chair, you have to know how to draw perspective. You need to know where to place the lines in order for it to be a convincing chair. But with 3D, everyone who's ever seen a chair can paint a chair because it's a square this way, and then it has 4 legs and a back. But for me, and that sort of seems more natural than having to learn rules to deceive people into thinking that they're seeing a 3D object. So this is what I've really focused on in the last couple of years now. I've pivoted entirely out of film and television, writing and directing, and worked specifically in this medium as a way of being able to tell stories, come up with design ideas, and work on new, interesting projects that come along. Some of those projects happen to be design-focused projects, and we've found that using this medium is really amazing to be able to 3D print things, create visualizations that can be viewed on phones, and there's really quite a lot of connection. And my hope is that if there are developers in this room right now, you'll see some of the things that I'm doing and other people are doing in the field and being inspired to kind of create that next Photoshop in VR. When computers were first created, they were never intended to be used as a creative tool in the scheme of a graphic design tool. But then, you know, Photoshop and Corel and all these programs came up, and now it's pretty much one of the main reasons why a lot of people will buy a computer is, other than social media that you would do on a phone, but is to do serious design or presentation work. And this is where I think VR is going to go, and this is the optimistic future I see for us. So just getting, if you're not reading that on the back, the work I do it includes teaching at universities and also with companies to help them see how this can be a meaningful process. Now, a lot of the time what I do is I'm not talking about features, product features. I'm not talking about pixel density ratio. I'm not talking about specific headsets. For me, they're all just tools. If you give me a better paintbrush, I'll use that. I'm not really that concerned with the details. And the reason for that is what wins people over is what do I get out of this? Am I going to be better at communicating? Am I going to be faster at coming up with ideas? Am I going to be able to wow people in a pitch meeting? Things like that. So this is the sort of work that I've been doing the most work. And as I move on, as of next year, I'm hoping to launch the Continuum Immersive Studios, which will be focused on 6 degrees of freedom content. These are some of the people I work with or have done work for recently. So car brands, as was mentioned in some previous presentations, Gravity Sketch out of London have produced an amazing product that is used by lots of automotive design companies, cutting hundreds of hours of productivity, cutting hundreds of hours out of their process and increasing productivity, but also doing work for people like Thales, who are a French engineering firm who create battle plans and things like that. We've created some very interesting workshops where we're able to get people to plan out evacuation processes as an example of how tilt brush could be used for something like that. So if we could kill PowerPoint and replace it with tilt brush, I'd be very, very happy about that. But we're not quite there yet. So this is a reel. You have already seen what I do, but let's see if it plays, and if it doesn't play, it doesn't play. That's okay. You've already seen what I've done. Let's see if is there any way of getting it to play? Maybe there is some stuff on there that I haven't thought about. Maybe it's just a picture. Okay, it's a picture. So, as a few other people have said in these presentations, for me, 6 degrees of freedom spatial content is the one and only future of media for me to focus on. The reason for that is it is quintessentially different to anything that's come before it. Now, I'm a massive fan of cinema. Don't get me wrong, I have no problem with cinema. But when it comes to the ability to tell stories in a new and novel way, to put people in an experience, 6DoF is the current best way we can do that. Now, obviously, volumetric and that comes into it, but that's still got some time to go. For me, humans as a species have always learnt from experience. When we were learning how to avoid a saber-toothed tiger or hunt a mammoth, we weren't sitting down and drawing pictures necessarily between kids and parents. We were going out there on the hunt. We were experiencing the process of doing it. So experience is hard-coded into us to be learning in a way that sort of doubles up or triples up the information, which is why you'll see those figures some of the guys have shown you, where experiential learning is significantly more absorbed than other mediums, and that's just purely down to the fact that we are built to be able to have that information hard code into our brain, and that's why I think this is so powerful from a storytelling and also from a communication of ideas perspective. And then this is getting more into the specific work that I'm working towards, which is this idea of handcrafted immersive environments. Now, there are amazing work, and we've seen some amazing work that's been shown on this screen today. And the work that I want to do is an extension of that, but have this artist handcrafted element to it. Now, anything that you can do to make something more of a craft, I think is a good idea. As soon as Wacom tablets came out, I had one. As soon as one of those little pens that you could use on an iPad came out, I had one. Right now I've got a little ring, which is an augmented reality ring made by a startup in London. Made by a startup in London called Litho, and it sits in between your hands and you can control, it actually sits like this, and you can control an experience through your phone. There's also a pen also made in London, just spruiking London a little bit here, called the massless pen. And Massless have created a much smaller pen or a paintbrush that can allow you to paint in space, as I was with the controllers, but with a very fine point of control. And these are all ways of being able to let us be more human, and I think there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Using a mouse or a keyboard to be able to design things seems very antiquated to me. It's a very well-established way of doing things, but it's also, you're forced into working the way the computer wants you to work. Being in an air-conditioned room with servers and computers and keyboards is taking the computer's place of confidence or its happy place, and then putting you in an unhappy place. So I want to try and change that, and with this immersive content, it brings back that idea of having a craftsmanship to the work. And when I say that, I mean brush strokes. Van Gogh style artwork can be appreciated, when otherwise that's very much a style choice chosen by the animators or something later on. So I'm trying to work with other artists, work with new brands and charities to do interesting things with this hand-painted approach in location-based examples, so being able to walk around within that painting that I just showed you, which would have been great to do, in the Oculus Quest, so it's portable and it's easy to use, and really letting that become a thing that happens. And there are a lot of other people out there currently doing it, but not as many as you would imagine. So if anyone's got an inkling to have a go at it, I recommend it heavily. So this is the start of the artwork that you guys saw. This is before I had lit it and before I had completed it. This is actually, I think, what I sent to the AVRA days. This is a picture of a speaker. Not sure why that is. Do we get to press play? Okay, there's a bigger picture of a speaker. Oh, sorry. So this is an installation I made for a 5-year-old girl as part of a branded project for a telecommunications company and a publisher. It's, as you can see, it's got very much a Wreck-It Ralph environment to it, and we got this girl to tell us what her ideal happy place would be. Out of all the things in the world, what could she have if she could create a world from scratch? And she chose a world full of ice creams, monster trucks, dinosaurs driving cars, of course, and a giant robot, a giant unicorn. So this was created, I created this over about 15 hours, and my ambition is to extend this work into an augmented reality applications by making the robot dance around in augmented reality. Potentially a location-based experience where kids can come along and walk around this environment in a one-to-one scale. Or take it and then extend that into something like the Magic Leap headset or the HoloLens headset. So this is really exciting, and being able to create these immersive worlds where people kind of get it and walk around in it and feel like they're actually there is really exciting. And for the record, the 5-year-old girl, Coco, her name is, took the headset on. It was a Vive Wireless headset Pro, and just ran. And I had to chase after her to get the headset back off her. So 5-year-olds in this new generation, we were talking about this the other day at dinner, that the younger generation are going to have less and less and less obstacles to being able to put that headset on, and they are being born with it. So basically, they're totally into the idea, and this girl had absolutely no hesitation whatsoever to jump straight into it. This is another artwork that I did for a computer brand called Chill Blast. This was a live painting project where I painted it in the booth at their convention stage, or convention area. And this was a scale version of a sort of a volcanic archipelago. I pressed too many buttons. If you press all the buttons, it fixes it. That's what I heard. Thank you. I'm going to flick through. Oh, there you go, it plays. So you can see, I love doing these little projects where you're able to put in coconuts and little details like a man in a hammock blissfully unaware that there's a volcano erupting behind him. And creating these things where if you're able to have people walk around in them, they go, okay, it's an island, an archipelago, I get that. But then also they can get in, see this little story unraveling, see the characters, in their environment. Actually, if we go back, there is actually a little guy Here's a little guy fishing. And the idea is that, maybe in the future what we're going to get into is this ability to be able to have these environments be dynamic, to have artificial intelligence, like some of the examples we saw where characters will talk to you or they'll respond to you, have hand presence so that different hand gestures will do different things. I was talking to some PhD students at Goldsmiths University in London the other day who were working on a simulator where if you flip a rude hand gesture towards an animal, it attacks you, and if you say hi, it doesn't attack you. So these are the sort of things that are happening, and some of the examples that are happening as well. So as I've sort of jumped into immersive animation story worlds, this is something that's very much still occupied heavily by the Unity and Unreal space, and those are both amazing, very powerful applications. But there's a very uncomfortable disconnect between being able to create something in VR or being able to create something in a computer, then stick the headset on, check if it's okay, and then take it off. So for me, one of the best ways of being able to tell a story is to actually be in the world, to see where the camera needs to be, or the 360 camera, or the viewer's brain head is going to be. So for me, what I've been able to do is I've been able to think about working on the idea as it's happening and not having to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and publish those versions. And I think that that's something that should be looked at a lot more. There is actually a really great example of a developer in the US, I cannot remember the name for the life of me, but that has created a cockpit entirely in virtual reality. And the way they did that is they were able to get a chair, to sit in the chair, and then have the designer put the gear sticks and the controllers where they wanted everything to be, and design around their body and use their body as a template for the artwork, which I think makes a lot of sense because ergonomically that sort of thing is quite hard to get on a computer screen, and being able to just sketch it out, even if it's a wireframe, bring it into Unity and then fix it up, or bring it into Maya and fix it up, is still a really clever way of doing it. So I use that quite a lot. I use my body as a controller or a measuring stick to work out if something's big enough or where something should go, and then we sort of move on from there and we do the sort of more accurate version of it. This is a program that I think was mentioned before, called Tvori. So it's Russian developed. It's actually their team are actually in St. Petersburg. And I work very closely with these guys. They've got a fantastic product because at the moment, it's the only CGI animation tool that's open to, at an affordable level in virtual reality at the moment. There are other tools out there, which we'll get to in a sec, but this is specifically a CGI mesh-based animation program, and it's the sort of thing that young children can use, but then also high-end visual effects staff or gaming practitioners can really jump into. So let me see if this plays. I blame PowerPoint, to be honest. I swear there's a play button. Thank you. Hi, my name's Sean. I'm a virtual reality artist based in London, and today we're here at the Digital Catapult to run a workshop for the amazing VR animation platform Tavori. Entirely in virtual reality, Tavori allows you to animate in real time and also in keyframe animation and tell stories in a visual way, in a very natural way to how you're used to seeing and moving objects around in the world.
Seeing how simply something can be made with Tavori really makes it open to people who haven't got the technical skills or have the ideas they want to execute, which has been really good.
When I've tried Tavori, I've been really inspired because it's an artist's tool. A keyboard and a mouse does not feel like an artist's tool. But once you try it, it's really hard not to have a revelation.
So what you've got there is this ability to have a rig character and grab its hand and move its hand around and record that movement in a real-time fashion, or place the character in a position of a start position, push a keyframe, and then move the timeline and put its hand in an efficiency position, and then have it animate between the 2 points. Now this product is really powerful because you're able to download it on Steam. I think an open, non-industry version is about $20 something US dollars. And if you wanted to, say, create a background character or a crowd character where the characters are all cheering and laughing, you could grab the characters off the object shelf, which is their sort of default asset library. You can bring in the character, it's already rigged. You can customize it if you want to, and then you can have the character animate and record the animation of you physically laughing and moving around with the controllers, and then export that out and use it in Unity. So there are a number of artists that I know that are using some of these tools, including Tavori, to create background characters for previs. There is one artist who works in the art department of ILM, or Industrial Lights and Magic, who do all the Star Wars films. And he is creating spaceships that actually sometimes end up in the background of a scene in the middle of a Star Wars movie. So these are the sort of things that are happening currently, but the uptake is people still need to be in the headset to really understand it. And with this tool, you have this ability to be able to do all sorts of things. So I think I've got some more videos, and let's all cross our fingers and hope they play. The speaker likes me. Oh, nice. Actually, so I'll flick through this really quickly. This is a side-by-side comparison between the traditional Maya process and the Tavori process. Now, they're both using keyframe animation here. They're both using untextured, photorealistic rendered versions. So when we're just talking about the base elements of animation, Tavori is significantly faster. And if all you're wanting to do here is show how a teapot jumps around an environment, I think the final version on the left ends up being, I think it's like 5 minutes, like 15 minutes or 20 minutes versus 28 seconds for Tavori. So this is where we're not talking about using this as a form of entertainment, we're using this as a tool just like Photoshop, Illustrator, all these applications that have become shorthand for design and graphic design and storytelling. And this is where here we go, they fast forwarded 4 minutes and 30 seconds, so it's a little bit over the rest things, but 300 actions versus 17 actions. Now obviously, I'm the first person to admit that Maya is a significantly more powerful program when it comes to visual effects, but for the sake of getting something simple done, it's not an easy or human designed program. And this is where the process has started, where people are starting to think, well, do we need 300 actions to do something very simple? Can you imagine how many actions it's going to be for something very complex? And the answer is maybe not, which is why I'm so involved with these guys and very interested in the work that they're doing, as well as many other applications out there. This is an example of a Christmas card that I made in one day with assets entirely on open source library called Google Poly. I animated all the characters myself in real time and exported it and got it out in, I think it was less than a day, so it was less than 8 hours, it was just me playing. So it's probably a 3-hour session in VR, plus some editing and some music and things like that. And this is where this sort of thing is really exciting, just tell an idea or tell a story really quickly. And I got second prize for the record, so I'm not bitter about that at all whatsoever. I am. Oh, come on. I think the guys upstairs have got to press them. Thank you. So I got myself a cameo up in the corner, up in the middle. So for something like that, texturing, lighting, animation, rigging, all of this is being made a lot easier. So one day I show people this and they're like, it's simple, but you get the idea. And I think that that's the point, is that this sort of work is normally done by teams of people, and sometimes it doesn't need to be done by teams of people. I'm not talking about replacing Pixar animators, who are the best animators in the world. I'm talking about letting them do more intricate character animation because they don't need to do these little details that aren't quite as important. Or at least getting a younger generation of artists to be savvy with this so that they can get out there and help some of the team. This is an example, a really quick example of some of my students at University College London, where we have imported a scene that they made from Tavori. Tavori can spit out a whole bunch of different formats, and one of them is Alembic. So the Alembic file was developed by Pixar or Disney or one of those sort of houses, and it carries a lot of information, including the position of lights, the position of the camera. So you can create a scene, record it, a handheld movement on the camera using the controllers, and then export that into Unity or into Unreal and get an actual organic hand movement of a camera straight out of this program. So this is us using, so this girl here and her colleagues are using the Alembic file straight into a program called Sketchfab, which is an amazing platform if you're not already familiar with it. And this is my phone using AR Core and the SketchUp app, which is all free. And the process of getting it into Sketchfab and running in AR as a proof of concept was probably as much as 10 minutes maximum. So just imagine if you want to show a client a floor plan of a building, or you want to show them something that you want to show, a table or an animation of something happening in front of them. This is the way you could do it really quickly. Yeah, that's a play on. I think there's a play on that one. So you have this ability to pinch and make the scene bigger. So you can either go from it being an object in the world, or you can use the camera and the AR core to navigate around this little animation in our room. So the girls were very excited by that idea of being able to show their work in the context of real world. And all the animation, all the lighting, everything is all done dynamically or is adjusted in something like Sketchfab, which actually allows you to read texture and read light on the internet, which is pretty miraculous, to be honest. This is an example of me using 6 Vive trackers on an actor to create a really quick scene. Full disclosure, we rendered this in a post process offline, so we did end up using Keyshot, which is a very quick drop and drag sort of program. That'd be great, thank you. So this is a real person in that very lab that we just showed you, running around. And it was recorded, recorded in one take, and then we went into some other sort of examples. But this is a character we created on the day out of very simple geometric shapes. We put it into the rigged character by removing the arms, the mesh arms that it already has, and replacing it with these sort of spiky triangular characters. And then we're able to take that out of the program and put it into key shot and render it really beautifully and do ray tracing and all that sort of stuff. So it's transferable to the traditional pipeline. This is an example that
Welcome, fellow traveler. I'm Gormlord, the Gateway Guru.
Created with Cartoon Network in the US.
Journeys that give you short glimpses into other worlds. Let's expand our horizons, shall we? Do you want to commune with nature and see the world from a different perspective? Maybe the musical and performing arts.
So that's an example of how they've Cartoon Network in the US have taken this program and run with it as their in-house tool for white boxing initially, and then thought, you know what, this is more than just an ability to be able to ideate, come up with different ways of telling stories, and started to do a lot more with it. They brought it into something like Unity or Unreal, I'm not sure which one it was, and created a game out of those assets. It's low poly, but it's you know, as with VR is at the moment, there's a low poly look that will quite work for something that's targeted at kids. And they were able to take the experience that works in the headset and then put it straight in and not have to test that. So one of the key things with that program is you're able to actually put a first-person camera in and then send a file that works like, that's an exe file, open it up on a headset and see the environment and walk around in the environment and see stuff. So these are all tools that can really take your ideas out of your head and put them into that virtual world, and the idea is if that process is a lot quicker and a lot more streamlined, and it's easier done by sort of single parties so that they can tell people, this is to your client or your boss, this is what I want to do, and it doesn't cost you an arm and a leg, and you know, this is the ideal situation for me, and where I think the future of the kind of creative use of this technology is really limitless. So yeah, I think that's me.